Senator Mullin.
Thank you, sir. Secretary Hunter, having the honor to represent Tinker Air Force Base, you can imagine that I'm very much invested in the progress of the E3 to the E7 AWACS transition. Last year's NDA included the Air Force $300 million unfunded priority request to accelerate the transition. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more how that money was spent? I know you spoke about it earlier, but more specifically to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we very much appreciate the committee's support. So we were able to, due to the committee's approving our reprogram request in fiscal year 23, get the program office stood up and running in 23, in the same year in which we made the decision to purchase E7, which was a huge benefit and allows us to avoid some of the delays that could have been caused by a CR last year. And then we worked very rapidly to, once the program office was established, to get on contract with Boeing so that we could start to accelerate as much of the program activity, the engineering work on the E7 that we need to carry out as quickly as possible. And so the resources that Congress provided really helped us to accelerate some of the engineering work. The kinds of things that we have worked with Boeing to get underway as quickly as possible is we've begun from the very beginning, talk to them about the technical data that we will need to acquire for the U.S. Air Force to be able to not only sustain the platform, but to upgrade and modernize it to stay current with the threat, which is especially critical for the E7, although it's critical for everything, but it's especially critical for the E7. We will have to work very closely with our colleagues at the FAA on certification of the E7. We wanted to accelerate the work, the engineering work required to get after aircraft certification as early as possible. It's been certified previously by other countries that are flying the platform, but not for the U.S. So we wanted to get after that as quickly as possible. And we wanted to get after the software work that will put the E7 aircraft that we're purchasing in a configuration that works in the U.S. Air Force context with our OMS approach to our software builds. And we were able to accelerate that work thanks to the resources that Congress provided.
Well, the concern that I have is the lag between when we phase out the E3s to the E7s. That time frame continues to be pushed, but yet we're still staying similar to the same phase-out period. Now there seems to be about a 3-year lag between where the E3s leave Tinker to when the E4s are supposed to start being delivered, or E7s are supposed to start being delivered. Are we concerned about that, especially about some of the emerging threats that are taking place today, that there's going to be such a lag between?
So the balance that we're striking there is the E3s that we're retiring are not in a good position to really engage in the most significant fight that we're posturing to be ready for, which is the Indo-Pacific.
But do we have anything to take the place between that 4-year lag? Because it seems to be continue to grow. We haven't been able to deliver. Yeah. General, if you want to take
well, let me just make one point, which is critical to fielding the E7 as quickly as possible, right, is having those E3 crews engaged with us in the acquisition system as right, we work with Boeing to nail down the configuration. But also they're going to Australia and working with the E7 community that's flying in Australia. And I have myself had the opportunity to fly on the Australian E7. It's very impressive. And they have learned a lot in operating that platform. Right. So having those crews available is a huge accelerant to fielding E7.
Yeah, Senator, we've held the E3 divestiture schedule constant since we laid it in, so it has not changed. And so far, the E7 delivery schedule has stayed constant as well. So that gap was programmed in on purpose. We preserved enough capacity in the airborne battle managers, the ABMers, in the back to seed to the E7 so that it's ready to go. And as Mr. Hunter mentioned, we're even sending them to Australia for training. But there are capability gaps in the airborne early warning portfolio that the E3 will never fill. So there is an issue of capacity, but really what we're getting at is capability, and we have to get to the E7 to get that capability gap filled. And the way to get there as quickly as possible was for us to draw down the E3 fleet in the meantime.
From when that plan first came through to where we're at today, the threat has obviously increased. Are we trying to really ramp up the delivery time to get the E7s in in operable conditions?
Yes, sir, we are. And you'll notice on the Chief of Staff's unfunded priorities list, the number one item is further acceleration
Right, I
of the
saw that,
E7.
right.
What that does is buy a center fuselage section, which is where the radar sits. That's the long lead item for another aircraft, as well as early acquisition or advanced procurement for 2 of the radars. So
Good.
we believe that there is some acceleration possible. The first airplane can't come any sooner than FY27, but they can come in greater quantity when they do start to come in. That's what you see as the number one item on the Chief of Staff's update.
Well, I know Tinker's getting ready for it, and they're prepping for it. They're getting hangars ready for it. It's, it's impressive, and so I appreciate the investment that's being made in Tinker, and we want to be helpful. So any way our office can be of assistance in this, please utilize us.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Bloom.